Welcome. You're watching the India Development Debate. I'm Tamanna Inamdar. The central government and the Assam government have asked the Supreme Court for an extension in the deadline to publish the NRC list. The government has also asked for a sample review of up to 20% of the current list to ensure that there are no incorrect inclusions or exclusions. The NRC, or the National Register of Citizens, is a list being drawn up in the state of Assam under the supervision of the top court that identifies Indian citizens in the state. Those left out could be deemed as illegal immigrants. The final list is supposed to be given to the top court on the 31st of July, and so far 41 lakh people in the state have been left out in the draft lists. The NRC issue comes in the backdrop of a long-standing grouse in the state that a large number of illegal immigrants, mostly from Bangladesh, now live there. But it has also become a political dog whistle, with Home Minister Amit Shah promising in Parliament that the process will be implemented across India and illegal immigrants would be deported. The entire process has turned controversial, with many residents claiming they've been wrongfully identified as illegal immigrants. So the question is, will a sample review of NRC list assure justice to those who've been wrongly excluded? Despite claims, is deportation a realistic option for those excluded from NRC? Should the process be carried out across the country as is being asked for? Does India want to put thousands of people in detention camps? And has the process become more of a political tool at this point? Joining me on the show now are Sanjoy Hazarika, International Director at Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative, Aishwarya Bhati, Senior Advocate of the Supreme Court, and Colin Gonzalves, Founder and Director at Human Rights Law Network. Welcome to all of you. Sanjoy Hazarika, I want to start by asking you the question of the sample review. How does a 10% or a 20% sample review actually work in determining that the list has been made fairly with no wrongful exclusions or inclusions?
Well, if you're going to get the same people who did the enumeration, then you're obviously asking for a problem. The process has been controversial from the word go. Not just controversial or mired in controversy, but it's been really problematic in terms of trying to get a clear, clean list, because there have been so many cases of people who've been erroneously kept out or otherwise kept out, And as Colin will bear out, there have been many cases where this should not have happened. And my own view is that even if a single Indian is off the list, then it calls into question the entire process. My own view, and I say this as somebody who's done large surveys in the past, and I was talking yesterday to one of the top survey institutions in the country. You don't need 20% or 10%, 6% is good enough, but it has to be done, in my view, by an independent group which is free of bias and which is technically truly competent.
Okay, since all of this is playing out under the supervision of the court, and I have two top lawyers here as well, Aishwarya Bhati, let me come to you and ask you how this is going to sort of play out. I know you want to answer questions only from the legal perspective, but the fact is that the Home Minister a few days ago has spoken about implementing the NRC across the country. Here in Assam itself, we have seen the impact of the process so far. There are reports of people committing suicide if they don't make it on the list. There are reports of wrongful inclusions or exclusions. We have reports of a Kargil war veteran who was excluded from the list, put in a detention camp, and then after the intervention of court, he was released. Clearly, implementing it across the country is a far thought. Right now, the focus is on whether this is a fair process.
Well, Tamanna, I mean, this is not for the first time that it is happening. This happened in the 1950s and 51, if I remember correctly, and then it has just been in the back burner. It was only on the directions of the Supreme Court and under the judgment of the Supreme Court that this exercise has happened. And as far as I understand, this exercise is also one of the the largest exercise of human contact being undertaken globally. So it's the largest ever. The sheer numbers in India are mind-boggling. Mistakes, yes, mistakes are there. We all know they are all out there in the public domain. They have been there in the media. But this exercise is necessary. We can't just, I don't think, I'm not of the view that this exercise itself should be completely, shut out just because there are problems or there are mistakes that have happened. We have to bear in mind that this is a revision of the exercise that is happening. The sample survey, I don't know who's going to carry it out, but the sample survey is also fairly large, what is being proposed by the government. One more thing we have to bear in mind is that NRC inclusion and exclusion will not be final. It's not like that list becomes the end all and the be all. The judicial process starts from there on. In fact, any inclusions, wrongful inclusions or wrongful exclusions can be challenged before the court of law. There are foreigners tribunals that have been that are set up, and after the determination by the foreigners tribunal, there is the route for the High Court and also the Supreme Court. So there are cases, even right now there are cases that happen. See, this exercise, it started in the Assam because of the peculiar problems and the peculiar geography of Assam, and there is a cutoff date which goes back to 1971. It is 24th March 1971, yeah. And we have to realistically understand that identifying Indian citizens and illegal migrants is a sovereign function of the state. So it is an exercise that has to be conducted for any sovereign state.
I'm going to come to Colin Gonzalves for more on that, but Aishwarya, just on a point you made about the legal remedies which are available, and some of these could take up to decades. We're talking about this fairly dispassionately right now, but these are actual human beings that we're discussing, some of whom may be Indian citizens who could be wrongly excluded from the list. Some may be illegal immigrants who are wrongly included in the list, but they're all humans at the end of the day. We're talking about subjecting people to years of legal processes, asking them to give paperwork which they may not have because your cutoff is in 1971, you have to prove you're a descendant. At the end of the day, do you think that we are conducting this in a manner which is proper and fit for a nation like ours, which has such a great legacy of treating the world as our family?
Tamanna, these are difficult questions. See, we understand that today the world is grappling with the questions of refugees, and the developed countries are also grappling with it. Ultimately, it is for the nations to decide that it's their resources. So the resources get divided into people who are not citizens. Now, all countries have a system of giving, asylum to maybe, individuals or groups of people. But as a country, we need to take that call. I mean, do we have enough resources to give asylum to how many people? And, you also have to understand that this kind of, mass refugee problem also completely changed the demographic and dynamics of the local population. So, if you speak to people from Assam who are actually in the heat of the problem and who are facing this problem of illegal refugees the most, you will realize that the demography of the whole place is completely changed. So it's not what Assam used to be. So there are no easy answers. It's not going to be an easy process.
Yes.
But I for one certainly think that the process must be undertaken. Yes.
Absolutely. There are no easy answers. There are questions of illegal immigrants the world over. When they're coming in an influx, then there are people here who have possibly been living for 30 years, people who've been born over here but may be deemed as illegal immigrants, and what happens to them? Colin Gonzalves, where do you sort of put all interests together and find a righteous path to move ahead? Because the question of illegal immigration in Assam has been a political hot potato much before the BJP's rise, though it is connected with this. It has been something that previous governments have also promised, and the first list was made as early as 1951.
Well, let me say it's too late now to turn the clock back, because at the highest level of politics and governance and so on, we are reconciled to going ahead with the blunders that we have made. First of all, you have adjudication done by tribunals which don't have judges. And the Supreme Court has said time and again, you can't have a court or you can't have a tribunal without judges. So you have the state appointing lawyers from their own party who are hostile to the minority community, pretending to be judges of a tribunal and making all kinds of orders. So if that is held to be illegal, as the Supreme Court has held in respect of other tribunals, then all these orders go. Second, you have adjudication without legal aid. Rickshaw pullers, agricultural workers, daily wages without legal aid. And the Supreme Court has said hundreds of times that if you have adjudication without giving the person legal aid, that entire process is null and void. So you have such a huge blunder committed, consciously done. The state is aware that they've done something very wrong, but they're just determined to go ahead and carry on with this tamasha. Now tell me, let's assume that out of 4 million, there are 2 million who are illegal migrants. Let's say 1 million who's an illegal migrant. What are you going to do with him? Are you going to put them into a jail for the rest of their lives for being an illegal migrant? You can't push them across to Bangladesh, can you? So the government knows, everybody knows, judges know, you can't push them back. So they've been here 20 years, 30 years, they're married, they have children, all that kind of stuff, and you can't push them back. So why are you doing such a foolish exercise of identifying people when you've allowed them to come in for 40 years and they've settled down in India?
Okay,
what are you going to do?
Let me get Aishwarya to answer that question. Let me get Aishwarya to answer that question. 1971 as a cut-off date, does that need to be re-looked at? Do we know what we're going to do with these people? Are they going to be living forever in detention centers? Because Bangladesh has made it clear they're not taking anyone.
Well, the Citizenship Act was sought to be amended before in the last regime, and I don't know what is going to happen to it now, but it did propose a change in the cutoff date, which also saw huge amounts of agitations, mostly in the northeast, because they did not want to change this cutoff of 1971. Now, this is happening under the direct supervision and because of the judgment of the Supreme Court. Now, what happens with these people is the next step to see. It's not going to be easy. These are sovereign countries that you are dealing with. It will be difficult for Bangladesh to reconcile to this, that they are their citizens, and because they will have to provide for their citizens then. Now, what India does with them is the next step. We think about it later on, but right now I think it's important to at least identify who are the citizens of the country and who are illegal immigrants into the country. So, at least that diversion is there, voting rights are decided, and the other rights which are now Indian Constitution, I'll remind you, Tamanna, Indian Constitution is a beautiful piece of architecture, we all know, but it has fundamental rights, some of which are specific to the Indian citizens, and some of them are available to everyone living in India. So it is not like those fundamental rights which are basic human rights not available to them. It is a tricky issue. It's not an easy answer, but it has to go on.
So you mentioned voting rights, and I want to just get Sanjoy Hazarika in on this. Is it about voting rights at the end of the day, where those who are deemed illegal immigrants will not be able to vote? Because remember, this is a politically sensitive subject, and this is where it's come from. A large number of Bangladeshi immigrants, and Bangladesh, of course, is a largely Islamic majority country. So Muslim illegal immigrants have come into Assam. That's the narrative, and then they impact the politics of the state. That has been the narrative so far. So at the end of all of this, is the process going to lead to a situation where you make sure that these people will not be able to vote, and that's the end game?
See, Tamanna, you're asking a whole bunch of questions in a burst. So let me sort of segregate this a bit, okay? And I want to respond to some of the points that have been made earlier by my colleagues on the panel. First of all, this is an issue which is an old issue, as everybody has said. But the way it's being handled is really problematic, because you cannot have a situation where, as Colin says, you have non-judges adjudicating on the lives, on really issues of life and death for people. You have a situation today in Assam where 1/7 of the entire population is either displaced or affected by flooding. many people are not even leaving their homes and not being rescued by the state disaster relief teams because they're scared that they will lose their documentation. You know, they're risking their lives to hold on to those papers, those pitiful bundles of paper which protect their identity and their lives. It is really a very traumatic situation. I keep going to Assam, I'll be going in a few days and I'll be there when the lists are announced and all that. But in my view, we need to understand one thing.
Yeah.
Article 21, as Aishwarya had said, Article 21 protects everyone who is living in the territory of India and says that cannot be deprived of life or liberty except by due process. The other things may be citizen friendly or citizen specific, but Article 21 is the all encompassing thing which connects us to the world and to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And I really think that it is very difficult for India to get up and say that we are going to throw these people out because there is no process of statelessness. The state of statelessness is not recognized.
Okay.
And you cannot have that situation when we are a part of a larger system. And let me just close with one point. This is an old problem. It can't be solved in a hurry. It cannot be solved in a hurry because the way you rush about it, you're going to make fundamental mistakes. That's why I'm saying, even if you do, we've bungled along and rushed along, harming people, the kind of trauma that people have to live through. And I think that is something that's why you need an independent, well-respected institution to review this entire process, and the Supreme Court should enable that to happen.
Okay, I've got with me now Himanta Biswa Sarma, Finance Minister of Assam and of course tall leader of the state, on the phone line. Mr. Sarma, I hope you can hear me and you've heard some of the debate that we've been having here. A couple of questions have arisen. One is on the process of adjudication which has been taking place. Do you have the right people making the decision in these foreign tribunals to determine who is illegal and who is not? Is it a fair process? And what are you going to do with the illegal immigrants once you identify them?
No, first of all, Tamanna, we must actually know one position, that Assam cannot be made the refugee capital of the country or of the world. We are losing identity. We have already lost around 45 of legislative assembly seats. Demography is changing. So if you are thinking about human rights of foreigners or the illegal immigrants prima facie, you should also think about identity of Assamese people. You should think about future of Assamese people. So our culture is ruined. Our language is getting minorities. So all these are relevant questions. So in my view, that if somebody is foreigners, then he has to be dealt as he should be under the Constitution of India. The question of human rights, Article 14, 16, 21, is not available to the fullest extent for the people who has come illegally to this country. Yes, I agree, there should be a limited human rights question which needs to be settled, what should be their rights till they are expelled, what should be the right to health, right to education, these are fine. But you cannot be at all points of time sympathizing about a bunch of people and putting Assamese people on the verge of losing their identity.
No, I understand your point, Mr. Sarma, but in fact, a quote of yours that I saw talked about these detention camps, where you said that you were not in favor of these detention camps. And the question here has arisen about what you will do with these people. You've talked about basic human rights under the Constitution. Okay, if you've identified 40 lakh, 30 lakh illegal immigrants, what are you going to do with them?
Tamanna, my viewpoint is very clear. I don't want to put a children or a children below 14 years of age, 12 years of age into the detention camp. Detention camp is the idea of Guwahati High Court, and it is not the idea of Government of Assam. What we feel that people should be given basic rights to health, basic rights to education, but at the same time, They should not be allowed to participate in the political process in the country. They should not be allowed the land rights. They should not be allowed government service, etc. There should be two separate, distinguished rights between foreigners and the citizen. And to the by following international law, they should be expelled from our country. But till they are expelled, I have no problem that if they are given rights of health and education. But they cannot be allowed the rights which are enjoyed by citizens of India, like political rights, right to land, right to government service, right to various benefits, which are basically available to the taxpayer of this country. So those kind of rights should not be made available.
Okay, Mr. Sarma, I have a panel of experts here, and I'm going to ask if you will mind taking some comments and questions from them. Sanjoy Hazarika wants to come in. Sanjoy, please keep it brief, and a question or a comment to Mr. Sarma if you want.
No, the comment is a general one. It's not to Mr. Sarma alone, because I think there is nobody who disagrees with the fact that an Assamese identity or a regional identity has to be protected. That's what many of us have believed in and have been fighting for. But the question is, how do you do it? And the whole process has not just to be seen to be right, but has to be right. And if we are going to have lakhs of people who are displaced, I think he came to the core of the issue as a good politician, that essentially it is the vote which must be taken away. Now, there is a process even under the Assam Accord, as all of us know, which existed, that in the group which came between 66 and 71, they were actually, the names were deleted from the electoral rolls. They were divested of their electoral rights, but other rights were kept in place. The electoral rights were kept in abeyance for 10 years, and then they were put back on the rolls. So I don't know, because we have to look at solutions that do not actually harm people beyond a certain point. I mean, and if you harm people, if there's a sense of prejudice and discrimination, then they will push back, and that is something we do not want to see certainly in our state of Assam and the Northeast, where a radicalization sets in because of the sense of prejudice or being discriminated.
Important point, but before yes, Mr. Sarma. Yes, sir.
Tamanna, although I respect Sanjoy very much, but my viewpoint is very clear. You have to be very tough. You have to be rather ruthless when you deal with somebody who actually mastermind plan aggression on the people of Assam. There is a plan aggression. Supreme Court of India has said there is an internal aggression taking place in the soil of Assam. So there is no question of having sympathy. Why you will delete the name of somebody for 10 years? If he is a foreigner, then his name has to be deleted for eternity. He cannot, under our constitution, just given a 10-year race and then on 11 years come and fully join like a citizen of India. You have to be ruthless if you want to protect identity of the people.
You've done that already, no?
That is why we don't support Assam Accord, even that particular clause. If somebody is identified as a foreigner, why only for 10 years? He should be pushed back. But yes, pushed back with dignity. There is no question. Till they are pushed back, provide them right of health and education. But we cannot be sympathetic to them, Sanjay Da. You are from Nagaon district, and entire Nagaon district now Assam.
But Hemanta,
entire Morrigaon district,
Hemanta, you also know.
One minute. I just want to...
You can't say everybody is a Bangladeshi, There are people who've grown there for 60, 70 years. They are children of those children living for 60, 70 years. There may be many Bangladeshis, but we don't even know who is a Bangladeshi.
One minute.
No, Sanjay Da, we are talking about Bangladeshi which come post 1971. It is unfortunately, but I have to be agree. But although we should not have, but we have regularized the foreigners between 1961 to 71. So people of Assam should not be, with remotest idea, we should not be asked to take harder burden of people who come post
Okay.
1971.
I just want to get in a view.
India has to be governed
Yeah, so
by
then,
law.
then just a minute.
One
Then
minute.
it should,
Let me
just
just
a
get the
minute,
other
Tamanna,
participants
then
in as well.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
Let me just get in the other participants as well.
I think that in that case it would apply across religions, Hindus and Muslims.
So yes. No, but you have to, Sanjay da, again you have to say that we have to protect somebody who doesn't have a place in because of their religious thing in Bangladesh and Pakistan. If you push back a Hindu
Okay, there are
minority
two
in
different bills.
Bangladesh, you will be
Citizenship
slaughtered.
Amendment Bill and the NRC
why
together is becoming
have
a big
them in
issue. One
Assam?
minute,
Send them
Sanjoy
elsewhere, no?
Hazarika, please. Let me get everyone else as well. I just want to get a quick comment in from Colin Gonzalves as well, and Aishwarya Bhati, and then get Mr. Sarma to respond to everything together. Yes, Colin Gonzalves.
I want to make 2 points. The first is this gentleman just said that you have to be very tough and ruthless.
Yes, that's
And
the
this kind
Finance
of language
Minister of
I think
Assam.
is quite inappropriate to use for people who are stateless. Yeah, I know, sir, and I understand, sir. I understand your position that the indigenous people have become a minority, but the solution is not toughness and ruthlessness of this kind. And you also say that you should push them across the border, and you know, sir, even if you take the Indian army with you, you know that there is very little possibility that you can push such large numbers of people across the border. There'll be chaos and there'll be deaths and there'll be all kinds of tragedy. My friend Aishwarya, whom I really like and a dear friend of mine and a wonderful lawyer, but she made one thing and I take issue on that, and that is she says, we will decide later on what to do. Now that's a fundamental mistake. Because people in Assam didn't need to go through an NRC process to know that there are millions, large numbers of people who are illegal migrants after 71. Everybody knows. But then you should have decided first that if we actually find out who they are and do an NRC, then we are going to do this. But you know that you can't do anything. So the question is, why did you get involved in this exercise at all?
Okay.
For what? Was it a political gimmick? Was it a political motive?
your
You must think,
recommendation to the
what is
people
your
of Assam?
solution
Okay.
to the problem
One
before
minute.
you create the problem again?
Okay. Yes, Mr.
And
Sarma.
one last point, sir, one last point, and I'll stop. One last point.
Okay.
Some gentleman made quite an amazing statement. He says, Assam government is not interested in keeping them in detention. But the Assam High Court is. I heard him say that. I hope I'm not wrong.
Yes, the Guwahati
Now
High
that's
Court.
an amazing statement to make. We don't want them put in detention, but what can we do? The High Court is saying put them in detention, so we are putting them in. So I find that quite an amazing statement to make. And it's a statement you must think about a bit.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Sarma.
I mean, Tamanna, where is the equation of amazing here? A Guwahati High Court has directed us to do certain things. We
Yeah.
are doing it.
Yeah.
So where is the question of being amazing and non-amazing? The question is now the gentleman sitting in the studio is not thinking about the Assamese people or indigenous people. Where we will go? Ask them we should come to Delhi and Mumbai and let Bangladeshi occupy Assam. So these kind of things, government of India will not agree to it. We have to be ruthless when we have to deal somebody who wants to come and capture Assam's culture, Assam identity, and everything which we cherish for. So situation in Assam is alarming. We have lost identity in 14 districts out of 32. So this is becoming something else land. So there is no question of, I mean, you can be following human rights to an point. But beyond the point when your home is being attacked, your temple is being attacked, your monastery is captured, somewhere we have to raise voice.
Mr. Sarma, may I just come in with one question, sir? And it's a part of what Sanjoy Hazarika asked before. There are two parts to this. One is, of course, the identity of the ethnic people of Assam, which needs to be protected from illegal immigrants. And then the kind of underlying message of religion, which is being put through all of this. That the attempt is to make sure that a large number of Muslims who live in Assam do not get to vote. How will the government make sure that that is not the message that goes out, that this is something which is against a certain religion and not only for the people of Assam who may be of all religions?
No, Tamanna, we are very clear. There is a large section of people who are belongs to the indigenous Muslim community of Assam. We are working together with them. There is no religious aversion. We are fighting against Bangladeshi Muslim people, that too who comes post 1971. Assam is liberal to the extent that we have already accepted around 50 lakhs of Bangladeshi Muslims who come into the soil of Assam.
What if the illegal immigrants are of different religions and not just Muslims? Will they have the same treatment?
I mean, those are different debate. If we are saying that the people of Bangladesh and Pakistan, they are Muslim majority people. If you deport a Muslim to Bangladesh and Muslim, there is no question of they will be deprived from a human right. So if you go by a prudent person, if you think as a prudent person, if you deport a Hindu to Bangladesh, you will be subject to what not. But if you deport a Muslim to Bangladesh, his human rights will be protected there. So there is no religious overturn. Assam has accepted more than 50 lakhs Muslim people who has entered into Assam post 1951 and pre 1971.
Yeah.
No other state of the country has accepted that kind of the population as their citizen. We are welcoming them into our family. Who did West Bengal did that? Did Maharashtra did that? Did New Delhi did that? Did Tamil Nadu did that?
Yes.
Only it is Assam who has accepted 50 lakhs of Bangladeshi Muslim community people who entered into Assam post 1951 and pre 1971.
Okay.
We should be rather you should give us thank you for being religious neutral to that extent.
Okay, Aishwarya Bhati, let me just come to you on where the legal process goes from here. July 31st was supposed to be the deadline. The governments of both the central government and the state government have said that we need an extension. You've talked about a long legal process that goes on so far. The concern is that meanwhile, will this be used as a political whip?
I don't know, I can't answer that, Tamanna, for you, but I can certainly say, hearing Mr. Sarma, it is very clear. He has spoken about land, he speaks about identification of illegal immigrants to be a ruthless process, but he talks about their repatriation as also how to treat them with dignity. I also, heard him. So the treatment and how they are deported back has to be with dignity, but the process of identification has to be ruthless. And to Gonzalves sir, I want to say the reason why I said NRC, we decide what is to be done later on is because NRC is the first step. At least the identification has to happen as to who are the illegal immigrants and what kind of rights will they be allowed in the country is something that India can think of on the basis of the resources that we have. Why should Assam bear all the brunt of these illegal immigrants? Why should they be allowed to have land? Human rights is something else. Human rights, nobody denies, even the Indian constitution guarantees to them. But the right to have government jobs, the right to hold lands, and maybe a right to participate in the political process, these are all very important rights which as of now are allowed only to citizens. So, but in the garb of living there for 20, 30, 40 years, of course mistakes have happened. Mistakes have happened for the last 50 years. States should have done, the country should have done NRC process at least every decade. Why did it stop after 1951? But can we now shut our eyes today and say, sorry, we have not done what should have been done for the last 60, 65, 70 years, so we don't do it at all? This is the right step, and the Supreme Court has directed this to be done by a judgment. There is a judicial determination that has happened. Yes, there are problems with judges of the foreigners tribunals because the sheer number of tribunals and the requirement is not being able to be met up. But nobody is changing the dynamics of the constitutional courts of the country. From the foreigners tribunal, the matter goes to the High Court of the state, and then it travels right up to the Supreme Court. All that needs to be shown is one of the admissible citizens' documents prior to 24th March 1971. And every day we are seeing such matters in Supreme Court. If somebody is able to show those documents, they are getting orders even from Supreme Court. It's all about showing that documentation.
Yeah, but what happens if that you don't have that documentation? What if it's been lost in a fire? What if it's not enough? You know, it's like we said in the beginning, it's a complex issue. It's a complex issue which you can think of from very different angles. If you put yourself in the position of a person today who has to suddenly prove his or her identity, has been born here but is unable to, where will they go? Are we creating a lot of stateless people? If we are, what are we going to do with them? This is a very deep, complex issue, and it would do well if we don't bring politics into it. Let's hope that's what happens as it goes forward, and it's a process which is dealt with the highest level of integrity, which cannot be questioned on any level. I want to thank all of you for joining us on the show this evening. We're going to take a very short break here on India Development Debate, but when we come back, we're talking about TikTok. Is the clock running out for TikTok? Should it be banned? Is the government trying to just shoot the messenger? That debate coming right up.